the aircraft itself is classified. This put Trump in a difficult situation, which more than likely is leading to why he's doing this 2-week ceasefire. Because the very operation, which was supposed to give him the W, was derailed from this unfortunate incident of an F-15 getting shot down. And they got caught with their pants down and had to prioritize finding this weapons system officer over actually going into the nuclear facility and getting the uranium, because this weapons system officer knew the entire operation, and him being caught could not be risked. Now it makes so much sense why they dropped everything to find this guy. That would have been the worst intelligence leak of American history if they were able to capture that guy. Here we go, guys. So we're going to go ahead now and get into what I wanted to discuss with you guys, which is this F-15 crash and rescue mission. Okay, so as you guys know, this past Friday, an F-15 was shot down, okay? Strike Eagle. Very expensive fighter jet. Doesn't have the same level of stealth as the F-35, or an F-22. These are, aircraft that, can carry a bigger payload, drop bigger bombs, etc. So here it is. The McDonnell Douglas, now Boeing F-15 Strike Eagle, is an American all-weather multi-role strike fighter derived from the McDonnell Douglas F-15 Eagle, intended for the dual-role fighter program, initially called the Enhanced Tactical Fighter. It was designed in the 1980s for long-range, high-speed interdiction without relying on escort or electronic warfare aircraft. And it can be generally distinguished from other U.S. Eagle variants by darker aircraft camouflage. Okay? Now, for the purposes of this discussion, what you guys need to know is that this aircraft had two individuals, the pilot and the weapons system officer in the back. Okay? Now, the interesting thing you guys need to know is that the weapons system officer on this operation was a colonel. Okay? Which is a little weird. I'm going to show you guys how we know this. So if you go to Truth Social with Donald Trump, right, we'll go right to the source here, scroll down. Oh, Lee, bro's on Truth Social quite a bit. Bear with me, chat, because I want you guys to see it from the president himself. Here we go. We have rescued the seriously wounded and really brave F-15 crew member officer from deep inside the mountains of Iran. The Iranian military was looking hard in big numbers and getting close. He is a highly respected colonel. When I saw that, I said, wait, hold on one second. What? Like, what is a colonel doing in the back of a F-15 fighter jet as a weapons system officer? That's an extremely high rank to be a WSO, right? On a mission. Then we got some other clues. We found out that, and here's a weapons system officer, just so you guys know, Wizzo, excuse me. A weapons system officer nicknamed the Wizzo is an air flight officer directly involved in all air operations of the weapons system of a military aircraft. Historically, aircrew duties in military aircraft were highly specialized and rigid because the relevant controls, instruments, displays, and/or weapons were concentrated in front of particular seats, panels, or positions. That included 2-seat variants of fighter or attack strike aircraft, such as the F-4 Phantom, A-6 Intruder, blah, blah, blah. Right? So someone said RIP YouTube. What are you talking about? Whatever. Anyway, so this guy that was in the back was a colonel. And that was the first red flag that I had, right? Because I was like, okay, this is weird. Then we found out that the CIA was leading the operation to retrieve the weapons system officer. Then we found certain aircraft involved in the mission to extract him that otherwise would not be utilized for a mission like this. Okay? For example, this aircraft, the Lockheed Martin MC-130, not to be confused with the AC-130, similar build, but this is a more, how do I say this? This is a better upgraded version that has a lot of classified features to it. Okay? So Lockheed Martin MC-130 is a basic designation for a family of special mission aircraft operated by the United States Air Force Special Operations Command, a wing of the Air Education and Training Command, and an AFSOC gained wing of the Air Force Reserve. Okay? It's based on the Lockheed C-130 Hercules transport. So the C-130 is what they normally use. But the MC-130's missions are the infiltration, exfiltration, and resupply of special operations forces. And the air refueling primarily of special operations helicopter and tilt rotor aircraft. So I thought this was all very weird. Then you find out that they had Little Birds on site. The Boeing MH-6M Little Bird, nicknamed the Killer Egg, and its attack variant, the AH-6, are light helicopters used for special operations in the United States Army, originally based on the modified OH-6A. So this bird, guys, is extremely small. This isn't really used for a rescue mission to extract an individual behind enemy lines. You can't even fit them on this thing. These aircraft are very small. Matter of fact, you can kind of push it and maneuver it where you need to before takeoff. It's extremely light and small, used more for attacking. Okay? Now, you guys are probably wondering, Mario, what the fuck are the U.S. Special Forces? Well, the United States Special Forces, guys, colloquially known as the Green Berets due to their distinctive service headgear, is a branch of the United States Army Special Operations. Okay? And there's different components of Special Forces, right? For the purpose of this discussion, I'm going to keep it very simple, right? You got, obviously, Delta Force, you got Army Rangers, SEAL Team 6, also known as DevGru. You got Special Tactics Squadron. These were some of the special forces that were there for this mission, okay? One secret Special Operations Aviation Regiment and Intelligence Support Activity. I'm going to show you guys a quick video on who some of these special forces groups are, what their missions are, and then we're going to continue on.
24th Special Tactics Squadron. 24th Special Tactics Squadron is the Air Force's Tier 1 ground unit inside JSOC built to...
Now, there are 3 different levels of tiers, by the way, in special operations, guys, as being an operator, right? Tier 1 and 2 are basically very similar, but Tier 1 gets more funding, and they typically deal with more classified stuff, more higher risk operations and missions.
Provide air power integration for the most sensitive missions carried out by Delta Force and DevGru. Its operators bring together combat control, pararescue, and special reconnaissance capabilities into a single element capable of guiding aircraft, rescuing personnel, and gathering intelligence in places where conventional forces cannot operate.
So these boys were definitely involved.
Selection draws from the Air Force's most demanding pipelines, and those who enter the squadron undergo additional training to match the standards of JSOC.
And once you guys understand who these different groups are, I'm going to put this all together for you.
Assault forces. Operators learn to manage airstrikes in dense urban terrain, establish covert landing zones, breach fortified structures, and move with the same precision as the units they support. Their skill set gives assault teams the ability to bring aircraft into the fight with exact timing, even in darkness or severe weather.
Someone in the chat said, why Elite Warriors? You guys are going to see here in a second why.
Squadron's pararescue men provide advanced medical capability under fire and recover personnel in hostile regions, while the reconnaissance elements deliver detailed intelligence for follow-on raids. The unit's structure allows small teams to deploy alongside JSOC elements and act as the connective tissue between ground forces and the air power above them. 24th STS gained its reputation in Iraq and Afghanistan, where it supported...
All right, now we're going to move on to Delta Force.
Delta Force emerged in 1977 after U.S. leadership recognized a widening gap...
These are the guys that grabbed Maduro.
...in America's ability to respond to global hostage crises and high-risk counterterrorism threats. Modeled on the British SAS, but shaped by American doctrine, the unit developed its own identity through strict selection, relentless training, and a mission profile defined by precision and silence. The operators come from across the Army, but most arrive from the Rangers and Special Forces, already hardened by years of deployments. Assessment strips candidates down to their decision-making under stress, their ability to track through rough terrain, and their capacity to think clearly in isolation. Those who succeed enter a training pipeline that builds mastery in close-quarters battle, aircraft takedowns, urban reconnaissance, and advanced marksmanship. Delta functions as the direct action spear of JSOC, supporting national-level objectives that require a discrete footprint and immediate results. Its squadrons conduct hostage rescue, high-value target raids, covert reconnaissance, and sensitive missions that demand absolute control.
Which obviously this operation would require. That's why they were there.
Work in small teams supported by intelligence, aviation, and technical specialists who reinforce every stage of an operation. The unit matured through missions in Grenada, Panama, the Balkans, Iraq, and Afghanistan, dismantling networks with sustained nighttime raids and shaping conflicts through targeted precision. Delta Force remains one of the United States' most capable special mission units, operating in the shadows with disciplined efficiency and an operational culture built on quiet expertise. DevGru. DevGru, often known publicly as SEAL Team 6, was built to give the United States...
And SEAL Team 6 is considered Tier 1 operators, the 6 component.
It's a maritime...
Because there's other SEAL teams, by the way.
Special mission capability.
But SEAL Team 6 is Tier 1 operators, which again, there's not that much of a difference between Tier 1 and Tier 2 operators as far as like capabilities and skill sets go. It's more about funding and classification of the mission.
That could act with precision on short notice. Formed in 1980 after the Iran hostage crisis exposed gaps in the ability to respond rapidly to global terrorism, the unit developed a structure that allowed it to specialize in hostage rescue, shipboarding, covert infiltration, and strategic raids across air, sea, and land environments.
Now, Nick Irving, the Reaper, he basically said it, look, he made it simple. He said, you send Delta when you need them alive, you send SEAL Team 6 when you need them dead, basically is what he said.
Its design emphasized speed, adaptability, and the capacity to strike under conditions that would overwhelm conventional forces. Selection draws from the most experienced SEALs in the teams. Candidates undergo a demanding
and he was a former Army Ranger.
Assessment that measures judgment, coordination, and the ability to...
Which Rangers are considered Tier 2.
Operate within small assault groups.
Very capable, though. Extremely capable.
Under extreme pressure. Training inside the unit expands their capability far beyond traditional naval special warfare, incorporating advanced breaching, close quarters fighting, aerial insertion, and specialized maritime skills suited for complex, time-sensitive missions. DevGru's operational footprint expanded significantly after 9/11 when it became...
They were the ones that went in to get Osama.
...became a core element of JSOC's high-value target campaign. Its strike force...
CIA found him and then sent the SEAL team in.
Executed missions across Iraq and Afghanistan, working with intelligence units and aviation elements to carry out rapid nighttime assaults that dismantled hostile networks. The unit's structure supports multiple squadrons, each with a distinct role, allowing it to deploy teams worldwide with minimal visibility. ISA, the intelligence support...
Okay, this is one of the more secretive ones that no one talks about, by the way, guys. Very classified, ISA.
Activity is the most...
They were probably out there as well. Actually, 100% they were out there because these guys are more tied to the CIA.
Secretive Tier 1 element within JSOC, created to solve a gap exposed after the failed 1980 hostage rescue in Iran. What began as the Field Operations Group evolved into a permanent unit in 1981. Designed to gather intelligence for missions too sensitive or time-critical for the CIA, it developed its own clandestine capabilities, operating under shifting codenames such as Centra Spike, Torn Victor, and Gray Fox to keep its identity concealed.
And just so you guys know, to be a Tier 1 operator is extremely difficult. Okay, let me not gloss over like people think, oh, I want to be a Navy SEAL, I want to be an Army Ranger, I want to be a Green Beret, I want to, bro, it's brutal. Let me be explicitly clear about this. Becoming a Tier 3, 2, or 1 operator is prestigious as. This is why I have an enormous amount of respect for Joe Kent, okay? When people sit there and say you're un-American, you're a traitor, I tell them shut the fuck up because you guys do not understand the selection process for this. We're talking blood, sweat, and tears to become a Tier 1, Tier 2, or Tier 3 operator. These guys don't get enough credit at all. They don't. They should be getting more praise than they do. Extremely difficult, grueling physical challenges. You're sleep deprived. You're hungry. They put you on the wilderness. You have to do all kinds of tests, enduring pain with swimming exercises, putting you in a multitude of different climate situations. The training is brutal. There's a reason why no one has ever made it through SEAL team training. You guys think basic is hard? Bruh, basic is a joke compared to what these guys do. So I want to make that very clear. If you're any top tier operator, whether 1, 2, or 3, Army Ranger, SEALs, Delta, ISA, all this, super highly, because these guys deal with very classified operations, sensitive operations. You're a G if you do any of this stuff.
Field. ISA's operate
enormous amount of respect I have for guys like this.
Work in the shadows long before assault forces arrive. Their mission is built on human intelligence and signals intelligence at a tactical level, giving Delta Force.
So informants and intercepting phones, basically. Human intelligence is a fancy way of saying waterboarding. And signals intelligence is basically tapping phones. It sounds more respectful, but that it sounds better that way, but that's what it is.
Force and DevGru the exact information they need to strike with precision. They intercept enemy communications, track targets through electronic signatures, and build real-time intelligence pictures. Most ISA personnel come from special forces backgrounds, bringing language skills, cultural awareness, and the ability to operate alone in denied areas. ISA operates in small, specialized squadrons that combine human collectors, SIGINT teams, cyber specialists, and mission support elements. Together, they shape the battlefield before any raid begins, making the unit one of the most critical and least visible components of American special operations. JTF-2.
Okay, now these are other countries, operators, and like that. So let's quickly recap here what we got going on, right? So obviously the official narrative, right, is that a colonel, right? Well, an F-15 was shot down. A colonel was the weapons system officer. We don't know the rank of the pilot, but I'm going to assume it's probably maybe around the same level, maybe a little bit below, right? And this weapons system officer was found about 48 hours later. During the operation to find him, okay, we basically, we saw MC-130s, MD helicopters, aka Little Birds, and we saw, which are basically used for special forces, okay? And we know that the CIA was heavily involved in the recovery of this weapon system officer. So here's my theory. Over a period of time, the United States covertly flew in MC-130s, Little Birds, and other resources to create what's called a FARP, okay? A FARP, guys, is a forward arming and refueling point, okay? It's a NATO term for an area where aircraft, typically helicopters, can be refueled and rearmed at a distance closer to the area of operations and their main operating base. So special forces, right, alongside other auxiliary units that were supporting them, set up this FARP to begin to stage a uranium showdown, essentially. The IAEA had given the United States information that there would be highly enriched uranium at one of the nuclear facilities. And I think in this case, they were not that far from Isfahan, okay? There's 3 main nuclear sites in Iran: Fordo, Isfahan, and Natanz. So what basically happened was, because these MC-130s and these Little Birds can fly in, radars off, completely quiet, okay? Just fly in, no radars, nothing, come in, don't get detected. And they had been doing this for a bit. And what ended up happening was this F-15, which I'm starting to think was attached to this team, right? Because the CIA ran the entire operation, guys. Notice how the CIA basically took over and was watching the weapons system officer. This is what I think. The CIA was planning a uranium assault on a nuclear facility and were staging assets and personnel in the area. Also, a military ID was found at the site. This has an expertise with nuclear chemicals, okay? Now, if they were to actually run an assault on a nuclear base or a nuclear facility and get the uranium out, well, it's lots of uranium. It's heavy and it needs to be dealt with in a certain way. Hence the two MC-130s to fly supplies and people in while simultaneously setting up this, clandestine operation to raid this facility. As they were preparing to do this raid, this is why Trump kept saying, we're going to attack Carg Island. We're going to attack Carg Island. We're going to attack Carg Island. That was more than likely going to be used as a diversion, right? From the special operators going into the facility and getting the uranium. So because they had some intel that uranium will be located at this location. So what ended up happening was, I'm willing to bet that F-15 was attached to that CIA operation. That's why a weapons system officer was a colonel. Because in my head, I'm like, why the fuck would a colonel be a weapons system officer? This is way below him. But now it makes sense. He was probably attached to that CIA unit that was running that operation. And obviously, he's a higher rank, which means he's going to be cleared to work at a higher clearance level for a more sensitive operation. So more than likely what happened was this. He volunteered to be involved in this operation, and that F-15 was attached to that clandestine unit or that clandestine group that was supposed to set up to take over to assault a nuclear facility and regain the uranium and take the uranium. But the problem that they did not foresee happening was the F-15 got shot down. So they had to abandon the mission to conduct the assault for the uranium. That explains why all these unorthodox aircraft were there that have nothing to do with rescue missions. Rather, they're there for assaults and bringing personnel in. Because if you're trying to do an extraction mission, I've listened to many military commentators talk about this, by the way, guys. What I've done is I've basically taken a bunch of different commentators and I'm combining all their analysis into one thing for you guys to understand simply. Okay, I'm taking people like Colonel McGregor, Aguilar, a bunch of different people that kind of Larry Johnson. I've looked at a bunch of people's take on this. And I was like, you know what? Okay, this makes sense. That makes sense. That makes sense. And then I did my own research and I'm giving you guys the filtered version of this. That's simple to understand. The aircraft that were utilized to rescue this guy are aircraft that are not indicative of a rescue mission. Typically, you want to use certain aircraft that get you in and out quickly, the smallest package possible so that you don't put other operators at risk. But in this case, we had all these big that don't really have any business being involved in a rescue mission. And then when they found that military ID and we saw that there, and she's pretty much like from the Air Force and deals with nuclear capabilities. That's when I'm like, that makes sense. Now we know why Delta Force was there. Now we know why SEALs were there. Now we know why Army Rangers were there. Now we know why these MC-130s were there, which are the higher classified version of the C-130. Now we know why these little birds were there. They were planning to do an assault on more than likely Isfahan, and the F-15 was attached to that unit. It's just that he got shot down and it derailed their plans. That explains why a colonel was the weapons system officer. Because with an operation like this, you want to put your best and brightest in place. And they almost got away with it, chat, if you think about it. Because everyone was focusing on Carg Island. Everyone was focusing on, where's the land invasion going to come? Are they going to come from Pakistan? Are they going to come from the West? Are they going to come via Carg Island? We know the Marines were doing operations in Diego Garcia. They were doing amphibious training operations of doing a ground assault. That hit the news. I think all of this was done to divert attention from a block operation that was taking place in Iran to get the uranium. And I think that's another reason why Trump decided, you know what? We're going to do a 2-week ceasefire. Because what I'm willing to bet is that that got taken down, unfortunately, because of this F-15 getting shot down, where they had to, show their hand, that probably derailed Trump's entire strategy. That's why he was behaving so ambiguous. That's why he couldn't give an answer. That's why he kept harping on, we're going to take Carg Island. It was all diversion. Meanwhile, the CIA was running a completely different operation in country. Because more than likely, the CIA had information where the uranium was, where it was stored, how to get there, and they brought a bunch of special operators to make that happen. So that's what I think happened. They put together a package or a team to assault the nuclear facility, nuclear professionals to take said materials, MC-130s to load said materials and bring personnel there, little birds to assist with the air support of the raid, and an F-15 or maybe other assets also were attached. That explains why a weapons system officer was a colonel, because that was a big red flag to me. And then when the CIA took the majority of the credit for getting him back, that's when I realized, these guys weren't even. These guys were probably were completely detached from your standard military operation. These guys were operating on their own. They were doing a fucking operation. And it made sense. That's why the CIA was the lead agency in getting him back. And that also explains why they were so desperate to get him back. They sit there and tell you, yo, leave no man behind. The reality is, don't leave someone who's a weapons system officer of a operation behind. Could you imagine if they caught him, chat? Now that we know what he probably knew? Could you imagine? This guy's a colonel. They probably brought him in because he was read in a high classification level. Probably only the president and a few other people even knew about this operation. That is why they had to get him. If he was captured, it would have been a colossal failure and a huge risk to the entire operation. The entire Operation Epic Fury. And it got blown. It was unlucky. That's also why, by the way, if you guys remember, they blew up the MC-130s. You want to know why? Because those planes are more classified than your regular AC-130s. There's probably classified documents and or technology on there that they had to destroy. So let's summarize this. And then we're going to bring my brother on and jump on some Twitter spaces. The United States was operating a highly classified clandestine operation to retrieve uranium from one of the nuclear facilities. I'm going to assume Esfahan because I know it wasn't that far from where this rescue operation went. To set up for the operation, the CIA was running this thing, running point on it, and brought in special operators, nuclear professionals, and several aircraft to help with getting resources in, creating a FARP, and preparing and staging for an assault. Meanwhile, publicly, Donald Trump was posturing that MEUs would be invading Karg Island as a diversion. And more than likely, the MEU would invade and attack when the operation was ready to go ahead and try to retrieve the uranium because they had information from sources in the IAEA when they were in country where the uranium might be held. CIA was running the operation with help from Delta Force, SEAL Team 6, and all the other Tier 1 operators and nuclear specialists. The F-15, I believe, was probably more than likely a part of the CIA operation, hence why a high-ranking colonel would be the weapons system officer. They did not foresee that they would get shot down. They got shot down, and they had to pivot and abandon everything that they were doing. This is why you saw all these unorthodox aircraft in the area. And after they were able to extract them, they blew up the MC-130s because there was probably sophisticated and or classified technology on there, and the aircraft itself is classified because it's a more advanced version of the AC-130. This put Trump in a difficult situation, which more than likely is leading to why he's doing this 2-week ceasefire. Because the very operation, which was supposed to give him the W, was derailed from this unfortunate incident of an F-15 getting shot down. And they got caught with their pants down and had to prioritize finding this weapons system officer over actually going into the nuclear facility and getting the uranium. Because this weapons system officer knew the entire operation, and him being caught could not be risked. So they would rather destroy while they were there with the MC-130s and retrieve him and blow the operation than let him be caught. Now it makes so much sense why they dropped everything to find this guy. Now it makes perfect sense. That would have been the worst intelligence leak of American history if they were able to capture that guy, who was more than likely read in on the CIA op and was helping, which explains his high rank and as a wizzo. Give me ones if this makes sense. I hope that makes sense, guys.